Hello there everyone, interesting tax case all about SDLT for you today. So, taxpayer bought a property to live in as a house in London about 4 or 5 years ago, paid £20 million for this thing, so not a small amount, and basically they paid a shed load of SDLT, as you can imagine, on a 20 million property purchase, and then one of these so-called SDLT specialists got in touch with them and they said, listen, Mr. Smith, we think that you've overpaid SDLT and that your property qualifies for a mixed use purpose. So basically in the SDLT world you have residential rates of SDLT and commercial rates of SDLT, and the residential rates are higher than the commercial rates. However, if your property is what they call mixed use, i.e. has some bits of commercial lumped in with the resi, then the rules say you can have the whole thing from an SDLT point of view at the commercial rates. In other words, if you do indeed have a mixed use property, you pay lower SDLT than if it was just a residential. So great. So you can see why the taxpayer took kindly to such a call and unsolicited approach from these SDLT specialists, and they said, oh no, we can get you £2 million back. So they basically tried this, and the HMRC said no, and as often happens in these things, it went to the courts, to the tax tier tribunal, and basically this is what was in the building, or this is in the curtilage of the ground. So 20 million, got a big garden. Even in London, they got a big garden. At the bottom of the garden was some old railway arches and certain sidings and various things that would have facilitated a railway underground tunnel. Okay, however, had not been used in decades for any such railway purposes. And indeed, the whole thing was overgrown. I think there was some old encumbrance on the title deeds that said British Rail or whoever had rights to this part of the property, but they never used them because the thing hadn't been used in decades, probably since the beaching years in the 60s. I don't know. The point is that this thing was not used as an active railway through the guy's garden, as the first thing. Second argument of the taxpayer was that actually in this £20 million house that we bought, in the basement, there's a workshop. And in the past, this has been let out to to a carpenter. Whoever lived there before, you know, they used to say, look, Mr. Carpenter, you can use my basement in my massive house. Thank you very much, and charge you a few quid for rent. And the taxpayer used that. And so the evidence that they brought before the tribunal was a letter from the seller of the property, who flogged it for 20 million 5 years ago, said, oh yes, that's right, when I lived in this, I did have this carpenter guy used to come in, and I used to let him use the workshop and charge them a peppercorn rent, or whatever he charged them, I don't know, but that got quickly defeated in the courts, because when that guy sold the property for 20 mil to the taxpayer who's in the court right now, it was sold with vacant possession. There was no mention of any lease to any tradesman or whatever. The thing was sold with vacant possession. So again, tribunal struck that out. So forget, on both counts, there's no commerciality here, no workshop, no railway activities in your garden. Therefore, it is not mixed use, and you are not getting your 2 million refund of SDLT. So just a wary tale there. If you have bought a property that's maybe a little bit quirky, when I say quirky, it could be defined as the fact that it's got stuff going on other than purely residential, great. You may get approached by one of these SDLT specialists, but for goodness sake, be careful, because often these things are too good to be true. Is it really commercial, the bit that these guys are purporting that it is? Is it really commercial? You could end up in the courts and having to pay a shed load of SDLT back. So to begin with, you know, you might have paid a lot, maybe you did get a refund, then you may have to pay back again with penalties and interest. So is it worth the hassle? So for goodness sake, get a second opinion. Don't just take the word of these so-called SDLT specialists who get in touch with you because they troll through land registry records and just look for the quirky things, and we thought, right, we'll get on the phone, speak to these guys. So please be careful. If you like this video, do subscribe, and as always, I'll see you soon.